Hi guys, thanks for watching. Welcome to the second video of our shoulder stability series, focusing on the rotator cuff muscle group and how to stabilize glenohumeral joint. The glenohumeral joint is a ball and socket joint between the scapula, our shoulder blade, and the humerus, our upper arm bone. It's one of the most mobile joints in the human body. Because of its structure is not as deep and stable as, for example, a hip joint, which makes it vulnerable, especially in weight-bearing poses. The head of the humerus, which is relatively large, meets the very shallow surface of the scapula, called the glenoid fossa. Because of this relationship, the joint is very mobile, with many different arm movements that occur, often compromising the stability. I'd like to introduce you to a short shoulder routine that will help you to become more familiar with those movements. Starting from arm flexion, arm extension, arm flexion, arm extension, arm flexion, arm extension, abduction, 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 adduction, again abduction, abduction, horizontal abduction, horizontal adduction, abduction, adduction. You can cross your arms, still abduction, elbows meet, bend your elbows, that's your Garudasana pose, eagle pose. Now, external rotation, internal rotation, external rotation, and internal rotation. Now, I like working with resistance band and strengthen your muscles. So we start with elbows bent, hold the strap. Now, first action is external rotation. Back to the first position, external rotation. So we are strengthening the external rotator muscles, teres minor and infraspinatus. Hold this position and back. Same here, horizontal abduction, horizontal abduction, abduction, and adduction, abduction, and adduction. You can also step on your band and work on your flexion. Again, flexion, hold this, strengthening the muscles, release, and position your band on your door handle and focus on extension, back to your pelvis again, extension. Triceps are working, shoulders, extensors, back, one more time, elbows straight, and release. The rotator cuff is a group of muscles whose job is to stabilize the glenohumeral joint. These four muscles travel across the shoulder and insert into the head of the humerus. They all work together, providing stability at the joint. Supraspinatus is the muscle that sits at the top of the scapula and attaches at the head of the humerus. It is responsible for the abduction of the arm. Infraspinatus attaches at the back of the humerus bone and sits below the spine of the scapula, and when the muscle contracts, it externally rotates the upper arm bone. Teres minor has the same action. It also externally rotates the upper arm bone. We have one internal rotator, subscapularis. This muscle lies underneath the surface of the scapula, attaching to the front of the humeral head. Going back to our first video, where we were focusing on our posture, I mentioned I often notice in my yoga classes a pattern of internal rotation of the upper arm bones. That suggests that the subscapularis is short and tight, which directly affects many yoga poses, including downward facing dog. I see shoulders placement like this, with the internal rotation of the upper arm bones. Following the simple rule to stretch what is tight and strengthen what is weak, we want to lengthen and strengthen the subscapularis, reducing the internal rotation of the upper arm bones. That pattern of short and tight subscapularis and weak external rotators, teres minor and infraspinatus, leads to bad posture and rotator cuff muscle injury and tendons inflammation. An injury can be caused by particular trauma or repetitive movement patterns. There are many different ways of stabilizing the glenohumeral joint. In my teaching, I generally put more emphasis on external rotation of the upper arm bones and strengthening supraspinatus and teres minor, and then reducing the internal rotation. All of that is the foundation work to stabilize many poses like downward facing dog, plank, side plank, pincha mayurasana, and many other arm balances. The first thing I'd like to work on is to bring a greater awareness what actually external rotation feels like. What are the muscular actions? We need 2 blankets. You start with placing your hands on the top of the blankets, hands shoulder width apart. Now inhale here, that's your neutral. Exhale, externally rotate your upper arm bones, turning your palms outward. Now inhale, come back to neutral. Exhale, inhale, exhale. Now stay here. Take your shoulders away from your ears and hold it. That's your external rotation in your upper arm bones. And then come back to neutral. Now stay where you are right now, and without actually turning your hands out, press the inner edges of your fingers down and apply the same action without turning the hands. So external rotation of the upper arm bones. So your biceps going forward, your triceps going back, and hold that Hold that action and release. The best way to progress a little bit further to a more advanced poses is to go to plank position and apply the same actions here. So that's your neutral, wrists underneath your shoulders. Inhale, and as you exhale, externally rotate your upper arm bones, turning your hands outward. Then come back. Inhale, exhale, rotate your upper arms. Inhale, and then exhale, and inhale, come back. Now go to your downward facing dog. First, apply the actions. So press the inner edges of your fingers down, index fingers, knuckles down. Externally rotate the upper arm bones without turning the hands, and come up to downward facing dog. And just notice if it feels different here. Apply the action. Shoulders away from your ears. Your ears are aligned with your biceps. And release. Before we can go further into more advanced arm balances, we really want to establish more somatic awareness, that mind-body connection, so we know exactly what we're doing before we go into more advanced poses. I want to look into another pose, forearm side plank. So we need blanket again, and we're positioning our forearm on top of the blanket. Your forearm is parallel to the short edge of your mat. You can keep your knees bent to release some of the weight. Now, lift your pelvis, and that's your starting position. First thing, to stabilize your shoulder joint, take the head of your arm bone back. Then start externally rotating the weight-bearing arm, and then your forearm turning out, in and out. Internal rotation and external rotation, internal rotation and external rotation, windscreen wipers, in and out. Now hold that, strengthening your external rotators, teres minor, infraspinatus, stabilize your shoulder joint, and release. Now we can try into the full pose, forearm side plank. So please come up, and then again externally rotate your forearm and bring it in and out. And hold this, strengthening external rotators, and release. We're going to take our journey a step further into Pincha Mayurasana, and I would like to invite you to work with a belt first, going back to our actions of external rotation. So make a loop with your belt and place your hands inside of the loop, inside of the strap, thumbs outside. Now press your hands into the strap as if you wanted to break the strap. Find some resistance here. And now keep your elbows shoulder width apart. Do not allow your elbows to go wider than your wrists. Now apply internal rotation, and then again back to your external rotation, engaging the external rotators. You feel the outer shoulder muscles, deltoids engaged. Back to inward rotation, external rotation, internal rotation, and external rotation. Hold that. Elbows stay as wide as your wrists. So that's your foundation for Pincha Mayurasana pose. That becomes your solid foundation for your arm balance. Our final step is Pincha Mayurasana. We need block and we need, again, our strap. We're still working with the loop, so that loop goes now around our elbows, stopping our elbows to travel apart. You can press your upper arm bones into the strap, again activating the external rotation of the upper arm bones. Now your block goes between your thumbs and your index fingers, holding the block. So that is your foundation in your Pincha Mayurasana. Now let's go into our pose. Position your forearms on the mat. Press down through your index finger knuckles, thumbs, heel of your thumbs pressing down. Press into the block with your index fingers. Press down through your forearms, and again externally rotate your upper arm bones. You come up to your dolphin position and kick up to your Pincha Mayurasana. Thanks for watching. If you are interested to learn more techniques and dive deep into the understanding and wisdom of yoga, please follow us yogaformen.com and subscribe to our Vimeo channel. Thanks again. I hope to see you next time.